Hey, how you doing? This is RJ. Today I may shock you because I'm actually going to praise Marvel. Now, I'll have to say right off the bat that I'm not going to praise Marvel Comics, but at the very least I'm praising a part of Marvel Entertainment that is trying to promote Marvel Comics. And that's something. At the very least, that's a step in the right direction. Now, the thing is that Marvel's Twitter site and website too has actually gotten much better over the last month or so. When they first made their announcement that they were going to become a lifestyle brand, and even before that I would say, their Twitter site and their website was awful. I mean, if you looked at DC's Twitter site, 99% of what they put up there was about promoting their comics. But if you looked at the Marvel Entertainment site, which has nothing to do with the movies, by the way, since Marvel Studios is the one that deals with the movies and they have their own Twitter site. So about 33%, I'd say, of what they put up on the Marvel Entertainment Twitter site was about their comics or connected to their comics, even just connected in a slight way. All the rest was garbage. You know, there was some that promoted the shows and some that had little things to do with the movies, but mostly it was cooking shows and Marvel Rising cartoons and a whole bunch of different kinds of podcasts, some that had things to do with Marvel. Most didn't. You know, you would have somebody that worked for Disney and they would interview them because they were trying to, I don't know, take the two companies that were working for Disney and put them together. And so they would interview a person from that other company and they would talk about comics maybe for about 2 minutes out of 60 minutes. It was ridiculous. But I would say now on the Twitter site, at the very least, I would say about 80% is now, at the very least, directly or indirectly about their comics, which is good, which is a step in the right direction. They have dropped a lot of this other content. At the very least, they're not pushing it as much as they used to be. Now, one of the things that I originally noticed when they made that announcement a couple of months ago about becoming a lifestyle brand was this thing that they put out on the Marvel site and the Twitter site of Marvel TLDR. Now, what TLDR is it makes little cartoons with Marvel characters in it. That's basically what it does. They're usually about 2 to 3 minutes long, so not very long at all. And when I originally watched them, because I don't remember if it started up when they made the lifestyle brand announcement or not, but that was the first time I saw it. And I watched a couple of them back then, and they were awful. They were complete garbage. I think it was Kid Nova and one about Lockjaw. And the one about Lockjaw was about Lockjaw and the Pet Avengers. It had Lockjaw and Frog Thor and a couple of other pets of superheroes. One of them was Aunt May's dog. And I wish I was kidding, but I'm not. They made up the Pet Avengers. I do believe they saved the universe by going and stealing the Infinity Gems from Thanos. Yeah. It was garbage. But I actually came across something on their site which was from TLDR recently. And I looked at it and it was about the Dark Phoenix saga. And I said to myself, oh no. Really? That is one of the best, if not the best, X-Men story ever. Maybe even the best Marvel Comics story ever. And they're going to put it through this. I said to myself, I have to watch this just to see how much they mangle this thing, because I love that story. That is a beloved story. So I watched it, expecting to hate it. Actually, possibly looking to hate it, because I love the story so much. And I didn't hate it. I really didn't. It wasn't bad. It was actually pretty good. And the thing is, what they did was, in this little 3-minute short, is they take the story of the Dark Phoenix and they condense it down to 3 minutes and make a cartoon of it and try to make it a little bit funny so that they give you all the backstory for what's going on. And what they're trying to do is twofold. It's trying to take younger audiences and get them to read Marvel Comics. And one way that they can read it is they say you can go and read the trade paperback. And that's fine. But they also want to have it so that if you have a young viewer who is seeing this, they won't feel so alone, so isolated to go pick up a Marvel X-Men comic. Now, that doesn't change anything about the fact that most Marvel X-Men comics right now are garbage. And I use the word most, I would say all, if you want to ask me personally. But at the same time, that's what it's for. It's trying to promote a little bit of connection between these younger viewers and the comics. It's saying, hey, you shouldn't feel too intimidated about going and buying an X-Men comic because here, you know some of the history. There you go. And like I said, it's cartoony, and at the very least, it's simplistic, but it's not disrespectful to the story. And this is something that really, really is a step in the right direction, if you ask me. Now, I watch a lot of animation, especially on YouTube. I follow a lot of people on YouTube that put out animation. They're just normal people that do animation. And usually they don't put out much. They put out maybe one cartoon a month, maybe. And they're a couple of minutes long tops. And they're mostly stick figures, almost. They're just blank figures, ghost figures, whatever you want to call them. And these people, they have massive followings. I mean, in the millions. And it's not uncommon for these little, just homemade cartoons and people making them to have 1 million followers on YouTube. And so here's Marvel, I would say, looking at that and saying, hey, look, this is what younger people are actually watching. Maybe we can make some higher quality 2 to 3 minute cartoons and put them up on our site, and so we'll draw in that audience. And we'll draw in that audience so that they will start to read the comics. And again, I can't stress this enough, how much this is a step in the right direction for Marvel. Again, the fact that most of their comics right now are garbage, well, that's the whole point of why I originally, I think, found TLDR such garbage myself. Because when I originally watched it, I was watching the shorts for these new characters like Kid Nova and Lockjaw that they're using right now. And that was the problem. Because when you're dealing with garbage, when you're dealing with a garbage story, you're going to make a garbage cartoon. That's pretty much it. But here, they're dealing with the Dark Phoenix saga. And it was good. And then I watched a couple of others. I watched the Man-Thing origin. It was good. I watched the Tony Stark one where he looks like he has a giant mullet on the back of his head. And I shook my head the first time I saw it. And you know what? It's not disrespectful. It's not SJW disrespectful to these old stories that everybody loves. And it's presenting them to the new generation. And if that's the way that you have to do it, if you have to present them the old stories instead of the new stories to get them into Marvel Comics, again, step in the right direction. And I have to say, I think most of the credit goes not to Marvel, but the producer of these cartoons. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. Noah something or other. I'll put his name in the link after I find it, after I do the video. But here's the thing about this guy. He was originally just given a couple of workers and a small budget to produce these things. And they seem to be doing so well that they've, I think, given him now up to 30 people working under him. And I don't think he works directly for Marvel. But here's the fun thing. I went to go look up this guy to see if he was full-on SJW and if he was just going to drop the other shoe after he hooked people into these cartoons. Which is what SJWs do, right? They give you a couple of stories that's not full of SJW nonsense to hook you and to say, okay, this seems like it's okay, and then they drop the other shoe. So I wanted to find out about this guy. So I looked him up. And I looked him up on Twitter, I Googled him, and I tried to find out a little bit about this guy. And here's the great thing. I couldn't find out much, if anything, about this guy. I really couldn't. And that is actually something. Because if you're a rampant SJW, you're virtue signaling all over the place. You got your nose stuck in everybody else's business, and you make sure that everybody knows that this is what you're for, and if you don't like it, go jump in a lake. That's what SJWs do. And so I take it to be a really good sign that I couldn't find out anything about this guy. If he has extreme views about anything, politics or anything else, he keeps them to himself. And he certainly doesn't put them in his cartoons, at the very least in the cartoons where they're not already there. If you know what I mean. If these older stories, like the Dark Phoenix saga, like the origin of the Man-Thing, they're not there. I can't see them anyways. So here's one of the other things about this guy. He does some of the voiceovers and the writing, I do believe. And some of these cartoons are actually a little bit funny. I didn't laugh out loud, but at the very least I chuckled. I'll give you a little example. Here's a clip.
The X-Men fight valiantly, giving it all they have to protect their beloved teammate, and they lose badly. Just so badly. Cyclops and Jean are the last X-Men standing, and in Jean's desperation, the Phoenix awakens again.
Scott! You have to kill me before I turn into an evil, all-destroying nightmare goddess again!
No, Jean, I love you. Do you know how hard it is to get a new girlfriend when your eyes shoot death beams?
With her last human act, Jean blows herself up to save her friends. To quote The Watcher, Jean Grey could have lived to become a god, but it was more important to her that she die a human. TLDR, hell hath no fury like a woman possessed by the Firebird of ultimate destruction.
Now, I thought that was funny. I mean, I chuckled. It was funny. And again, this is another indicator I would say that this guy is not full-on SJW, because SJWs don't have a sense of humor. They are offended by so much that they can't laugh at anything. They have no sense of humor. And this guy has a sense of humor. These things are funny. I like it. So it's fun, it's entertaining, it's pointing people towards the comics. Great. And a little bit of a sad thing here to me is the fact that I'm looking at these pictures, I'm looking at this cartoon, and I'm saying to myself, it's very cartoony. But this art is better than anything, almost anything that's coming out of Marvel Comics right now. If they were to make Marvel Comics in this cartoon style, I would actually be more engaged in the Marvel Comics than I am right now. I would want to buy them more if they used this cartoony art. This is one of the things that I forgot to talk about when I was talking about Marvel possibly becoming an anime brand. It's the fact that I can see in the future, because all of these artists are such drama queens and thinking that they're superstars, that eventually maybe they're just going to cut out the artist altogether. That they're going to make artist teams, right? It's just going to be an artist team. There's a bunch of teams working now, which are 1s and 2s and 3s, but just an artist studio team. No one's actually going to get recognition, no name recognition at all. You're just part of the team, like they do in cartoons. And I think that if they were to put that into the comics, great. It's much better than what they got right now. Anyways, I just wanted to do this little thing about TLDR. Because, again, I'm always down on Marvel, and I found something that actually seems to be pointing Marvel in the right direction. Whether or not it's going to stay in that direction, whether or not it actually shows them what people want and what people like, well, let's hope. Alright, so, if I give you anything new to think about, hit like, hit the shield in the lower right-hand corner of your screen to subscribe, and leave me a comment. Tell me if you've watched any TLDR, and what you think of them. Alright, I'll see you later. Bye.